Fox News. Breaking news.
Tonight, the spotlight is turning straight towards Illinois. Governor J.B. Pritzker, after the attempt on President Donald Trump's life, and the question is no longer whether Democrat rhetoric got out of control. The question is how many warnings the country ignored before it got this bad. Pritzker said every day Americans are not pushing back against an authoritarian. That authoritarian is gaining power. Then after years of calling Trump a threat, a fascist, a dictator, and worse, the country watched violence strike again. Now the White House is naming names, and Pritzker is suddenly being forced to answer for words that may have helped poison the culture. See, this matters to every American watching because when political leaders spend years telling unstable people that the President of the United States is Hitler, a dictator, or an existential threat, some of those people stop hearing politics and start hearing permission. That's the real danger here. It's not tough talk. It's not cable news theater. It is the creation of a climate where hatred feels justified and lawlessness feels heroic. President Trump has called for the country to tone down the rhetoric and reunify around what makes America great. The Trump administration is trying to restore order, secure the border, rebuild American industry, and protect federal officers doing their jobs, yet Democrats keep escalating. Caroline Leavitt laid it out plainly, naming Hakeem Jeffries, Elizabeth Warren, Adam Schiff, Ed Markey, Ayanna Pressley, and J.B. Pritzker himself for using warfare language and street action language against this president. If leaders refuse to draw a line now, ordinary Americans will keep paying the price in fear, division, and political violence. And while the media obsesses over chaos, real breaking news from the Trump White House shows what America First leadership looks like in action. This from the White House. They just announced over $30 billion to secure America's critical mineral supply chains and named a specific Alaskan project as a key strategic asset for the U.S. Mineral Independence Program. Now, I've been to the Vizsla copper drilling site in Canada myself. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've held the core samples. What's happening right now in Alaska is bigger than most people realize. President Trump just unveiled Project Vault, a $12 billion strategic minerals reserve designed to stockpile essential resources and keep America strong, secure, and independent from hostile foreign powers. Vizsla Copper's right in the middle of that conversation. If you want to understand why this matters for investors and for the country's future, check the exclusive briefing only for Next News viewers. It's linked below. Remember, Vizsla Copper trades in the U.S. under, write this down, VCUFF, and in Canada as VCU.V. Now back to the story, because the same America First fight to secure this country also means calling out the people poisoning it with reckless political rhetoric. See, here's where the story gets even more revealing. Pritzker's not backing down. After the attack, he was still defending free speech in broad terms while the White House warned that repeated demonization of President Trump inspires mentally disturbed individuals to act. And that's the split screen America is seeing right now. President Trump urging unity while top Democrats and their media allies act like they bear no responsibility for the climate they helped to create. That disconnect is exactly why the pressure is building tonight. Here's a post from J.B. Pritzker. Something is clearly wrong with President Donald Trump. The 25th Amendment needs to be invoked.
The 25th Amendment needs to be seriously considered and invoked. We've seen it day in and day out. We've now seen him as president the second time around. I don't know whether it's age, there's some kind of dementia going on, but clearly something is wrong with the man, and the people closest to him should know that, and they're the ones who can invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him.
Yeah. And of course, Biden was sharp as a tack, right, JB? Pritzker out there pushing the 25th Amendment, calling Trump mentally unfit. Now Darren Bailey, who is his opponent in the gubernatorial race in Illinois, connects that kind of rhetoric to the assassination attempt itself. He writes this, J.B. Pritzker said, every day you aren't pushing back against an authoritarian, they are gaining power. Tonight someone tried to kill the President of the United States. And he presents several posts from J.B. Pritzker. Every day you're not pushing back against an authoritarian, they're gaining power. That's the post. Bailey drawing a straight line between Democrat rhetoric and political violence. Now, James Carville admits he wants to watch the president suffer. top Democrat James Carville on his podcast. This is the raw hatred coming from the left's top voices.
Clear on this. I do not want that man to die. I want to watch him suffer. And I can't watch a dead person suffer. So I want him to be fully cognizant come November. So when people tell him.
Can you believe? I mean, that's just so vile. I mean, so much hatred just dripping from their freaking lips. That wasn't a random internet troll. That was top Democrat strategist talking about Trump's suffering. And then Pritzker posts this: free speech isn't optional in a democracy. And he posts a video to Caroline Levitt.
Well, I think you heard it directly from the president on Saturday night, Aisha, that in his words, we need to recommit ourselves as a country to toning down the rhetoric and to unifying around what makes our country great. That's true of everyone who works in this White House, but as I said, it's also true of everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen. And when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things. And unfortunately, it's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it.
And J.B. Pritzker contributing to that. Pritzker wants to act offended after Democrats spent years calling Trump a dictator and worse. Now, Levitt names names, including Pritzker, and lays out the receipts.
It's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, "We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time." Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. You have Rep. Presley saying, "We'll see you in the streets." Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat representative on Capitol Hill, "We will not take this shit from Donald Trump. He thinks he's a dictator. We are at war." These are Democrat elected officials calling for war against the President of the United States and his supporters. I could go on and on, but again, when you have people in positions of power that are saying things like this every single day for years, you are inspiring violence by people who are already mentally ill. And that's what we've seen against this president for far too long.
Levitt putting Pritzker on the list, backing it up with his own words. Shifting gears, this next clip shows the same governor in Illinois building an accountability commission to target federal agents doing immigration enforcement. J.B. Pritzker created a new accountability commission to go after federal agents who conducted lawful operations in Chicago. Gunter Eagleman asks, why doesn't he go after the underground network of insurrectionists who use third-party chat forums to coordinate obstruction surges against agents? Could it be he endorses the insurrectionists? That would not surprise me. Watch.
Turn to the news in Illinois today. You created this Illinois Accountability Commission to investigate ICE's Operation Midway Blitz last fall. They've interviewed over 60 eyewitnesses, reviewed hundreds of hours of surveillance footage, phone videos, and body-worn cameras. Trump administration officials, though, declined to cooperate or participate, it seems. What has this review found?
Well, first, that laws were broken, that people violated their oaths, they violated protocols. We're talking about CBP and ICE agents on the ground, as well as their leaders, their supervisors, all the way up to Kristi Noem, leading the Department of Homeland Security, Tom Homan, Greg Bovino. So many have just ignored what the law is. And what we ended up seeing was black and brown people being tackled. We're talking about U.S. citizens whose safety was taken away from them. This was never about public safety. It was never about public safety. He said he was going after the worst of the worst. That's not who they arrested. 81% of the people that they detained were people who had no record at all of any violence or any kind of crime that they'd committed. And so our effort here with the Accountability Commission is to keep a record, to make sure that when we can bring accountability, and by the way, some of it's already been used in court cases to limit what CBP and ICE are doing on the ground. We, of course, in Illinois have pushed back on the National Guard being allowed into our cities to enact this kind of immigration violence that the president has brought. So the Accountability Commission's design is really to keep a record so that when either there's a Democratic Congress or a Democratic president or anybody that will actually hold people accountable for breaking the law or breaching their law enforcement protocols, that they will be held accountable and responsible.
Are you saying if any ICE or Border Patrol agents, do you think any of them should face charges for allegedly breaking the law? Is that what you're suggesting?
If they broke the law, of course they should. And of course,
did you find anyone? Did this review find anybody broke the law then should face charges?
Well, it depends. So here's the thing. It's the federal government that needs to hold them accountable. They did break the law. There's no doubt about that. But when the federal government isn't holding them accountable, we've got to keep the record so that when they can be held accountable, we are able to do so. And yes, there are going to be people who are criminally liable and civilly liable.
Okay, JB. So here's the pattern. Smear Trump, attack the supporters, and go after the agents protecting the border. Now Pritzker gets pressed on why Democrats are collapsing with voters and still defaulting to anti-Trump talking points.
Governor, we're about 6 months away from the midterm elections. President Trump's approval rating, it has dropped because of a variety of issues, some of which dealing with these issues we're talking about now. But the approval of your party, the Democratic Party, still remains as low as ever, now just standing at 28%. You may very well be someone running for the Democrats' presidential nomination in 2028. So why is your party still struggling to connect with so many voters?
Look, the voters are upset with both parties. They're upset with the political system. People are ready for a change. And what they want is to make sure that something's getting done for them. You know, when Donald Trump imposes tariffs and it costs every family $1,700 and it's found to be illegal, and yet none of them are getting checks back, that is why people are upset. That's an example. And what about the high price of gas? What about people dying in a war in Iran, a war of choice by Donald Trump?
So what should your party do differently? What should your party do differently?
Well, we're the party that's standing up for peace. We're the ones who don't think we should have gone into this war of choice by Donald Trump. And I'm here to speak and defend the state of Illinois and the people of Illinois. And I can tell you, they're upset by everything that's happening in this country right now. And I believe that in November, they're going to want to change.
Well, let me be very clear, Mr. Pritzker. You don't speak for me. The real revelation is this. It's not about a bad quote or an angry podcast clip or one governor trying to clean up his words after the fact. It's a system, a Democrat system of constant escalation. Call Trump authoritarian, call him fascist, say we're at war, say Republicans should know no moment of peace, right, JB? Say heads need to roll. and pretend these are just metaphors when someone finally takes that hatred seriously. Caroline Leavitt was right to call them out by name because sunlight is the only thing that stops this machine. And then when Pritzker launches commissions to target federal agents carrying out lawful Trump administration priorities, Americans can see the pattern clearly. Delegitimize the president, demonize enforcement, inflame the base, and then deny responsibility. See, the line between speech and consequence is really not that hard to find. Leaders find it every time they choose truth over hysteria and responsibility over incitement. President Trump survived, thank God. But the rotten culture that fueled this attack did not appear out of nowhere. It was fed for years by desperate Democrats who cannot beat him on results, so they try to turn him into a monster in the minds of unstable people. Americans should reject that poison completely. If you agree that Democrats must stop the war talk and own the damage it causes, share this report right now. And drop a comment below and answer this yes or no question. Should J.B. Pritzker apologize for his rhetoric against President Trump? Make sure you subscribe, you tap the bell, and you text raw feed to the number on the screen, 844-840-4963, so you can beat the algorithm and get direct updates sent to your phone from me. And check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. America's stronger than their hate, and we're not going to back down.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.